Welcome back, everybody. We are going to crack on with this afternoon's content. This next session is the essential guide to generative AI and sport. Joining me to discuss that subject is Matt Stagg. He's a media and entertainment innovation specialist and a former BT Sport mobile and immersive director. Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
As you're probably aware, before this event, I sent out a questionnaire to delegates that had registered by a certain date to ask them what they thought about generative AI so that we could shape this session, but also get a flavour for what the industry is currently thinking when it comes to this particular subject. First of all, thank you to the people that did. About 10% of you filled in that question. That's I'm really grateful for that. It's really helpful. You'll have noticed I throw in some curveballs. Occasionally I was asking you whether you were concerned about an artificial intelligence concern or opportunity as opposed to a generative AI concern. And I think what it tells me from the results is that not everybody knows the difference, and that includes me. So we're going to start off by defining the difference between Gen AI and AI. Matt, what's the difference?
I think if we go back to, so AI is more of a general, not generative, a general term that overrides different technologies, one of which is machine learning, where you can actually train a machine over time to learn to be able to do processes that it could have been time-consuming for a human to do. Or really, I see that as an evolution of automation, which we've always been moving towards, especially in our industry. Generative AI, on the other hand, is where we're looking at on more of the creative side, where you can put in data or pictures and explain to the AI processes and algorithms what you would like, and then it comes back and it does a lot of the thinking for you, and then it's able to produce output that is emulating the person's creative processes.
Thank you. So, with that in mind, let's have a look at the results of one of the questions that was asked during the survey, which is about the concerns you might have about the potential of generative AI when it comes to creating, managing, and distributing sports content. We're going to sort of dispel a few myths to start with. So you'll see on that graph there that Gen AI will do me out of a job is actually quite low. But just to get that out, just bat this away, why is that not an issue? Why is Gen AI not going to do me out of a job?
Because we need the creative side of this industry. When we talk about creatives, we're not talking about editorial. We're talking about creativity in production, creativity in the field. You'll always need someone who understands sport and the passion around it, because that's what brings us great content. And also you've got to get someone to look at it and say whether it's any good or not. I just see it as it's a massive workforce for a single person to be able to have to free up their time to be able to do more of the things that they've trained about, that they're passionate about, without going through and indexing, millions and millions of parts of a content.
Yeah, absolutely. I always see it as having a work experience person sitting next to you on your desk. Let's bat away another myth. Gen AI will not understand bias.
I guess that's both a good and a bad thing. Sometimes for certain content, especially in sport, you may want a bias. If you're clipping up for ultra personalization, you may want a bias towards a fan of a certain team. So it will have to understand that if that's the output you want. In terms of a bias in itself, then it's all about how you train it. It's not going to learn and start to be a Liverpool supporter, although it might, it's the best team, but you know what I mean? So when we look at bias like that, and I think it's very different in terms of, you take the news industry, for example, they have a lot more to think about in bias, whereas, sport, there isn't a lot of places you can go with it, if that makes sense.
Yep, okay. A really important one, Gen AI cannot operate efficiently and accurately without human supervision. Is that a concern or is that just a truism?
It's a truism, and I would say that's the best thing that can happen, because we all work in this industry, and we want to carry on doing our jobs.
Absolutely. Gen AI will be a threat to IP, that's intellectual property, not internet protocol, and copyright.
I think, again, I approach this from two ways. Absolutely, and that's something as we go along. We're very early at this stage. Even the fact that these are being identified means that we can go in, and as we're developing these algorithms and systems, that we can go in and have a checks and measures. It might be a new job for somebody to come in and look at that. Also, on the other hand, when we look at copyright and access, we know that we get a lot of people with illegal streaming of very, very valuable content and rights. Well, that is a great opportunity to be able to use AI to combat some of this fraud and theft.
Excellent. So just on that, I'm going to probe a little bit deeper on this one quickly. For me, it feels like if we had all the data in the world exposed free, it would learn a lot quicker. But we want to keep our data. We want to own our data. This guy here wants to keep his data. It's all ring-fenced. So until such point as we all have access to all the data, it's never going to be a fulsome, inclusive approach. How on earth do we get around that part of it?
I think, to start with, we don't want to. There is a competitive advantage. Just like, if you're a host broadcaster, you'll give the feed. You won't give them your halftime editorial or access to your pundits, because that's your brand. And I think it will be the same. There may be things that we want to share, as we always do. We have innovation across this industry very, very fast, very, very quickly. But sometimes you need to share some of those ideas so that you can start to develop products that you'd never be able to bring to life on your own. So that might be, something around analytics. We've seen that it's, better to share as an industry, and then we can use AI on top of that. But you will keep your IP, will stay your IP. And that's where we look at things like, already we're looking at data integrity and security. That's where using cloud-based technology not only helps with multiple things, remote production. We know all of this, and AI. But your data is moving towards there. It's going to be on there. So it gives you an opportunity to be able to trial different AI solutions, which also sit on the cloud. So it's not, you don't have to buy an AI machine to put in your broadcast truck. It's that kind of opportunity. So you can take baby steps.
Thank you. Right, so we talked about concerns. Let's talk about opportunities. So the question I asked in the survey was, what excites you about the potential of Gen AI? And there's two things there which are heading the table. One is freeing up time for creative processes and potentially saving money by automating tasks, reducing costs and automating tasks. Can you give us a couple of examples, Matt, about how that might manifest itself for sports broadcasting and production?
Yes. So I've, I don't know if people know, but I've been having some time off over the summer to do a lot of research and some consultancy, and obviously I've been sort of very heavily into where AI is going to take us. So I think from an operations, very good example from operations and productions and creation is Pixelot are using automation on cameras and production. But that's not necessarily going, we're not going to use that for Champions League. We're going to have our full production. However, when you can start to democratize sport broadcasting, because it's a fairly, you can have more of lower tier sport, which we've always struggled with, and that's not just a broadcaster. You can have clubs where there's no rights anyway. More sports, more opportunities for you to be able to look. Grassroots always has a following, even if it's just grandma and granddad want to be able to watch their grandson play football. And this also, and actually this comes in, and I did a piece on this where we look at how, not just in isolation, because we've always talked about 5G being an enabler to be able to, democratize some of the broadcasting. So I think that that's very good, and that's going, and that's the whole thing, not just an automated camera that can machine learn where the ball is, but we're talking about the production and then the output. So I'm really interested to see, and you should go and have a look on the content creation, fan engagement side of things. What the NBA, WSC Sports, and Microsoft are doing is a fantastic example of this. It's an example of, so what they're doing is taking every play from every player and club, taking that content, and then being able to do ultra personalization. Now, to be able to, so you can be a fan of a player, you can be a fan of a team, you can be a fan of a league, and that be able to provide you lots of content that wouldn't potentially make broadcasts, or you might not have the rights. It drives them fan engagement. It drives them towards using their app, and that's working really good. And they've come out and said we just would not have the man or woman power to be able to do any of this. So actually what you've got there is a whole new opportunity to monetize your content, your players, without having to employ anyone else.
Wow. On an operational level, is there an impact from potentially positive or negative from Gen AI?
Operational is quite interesting, because I think we're still really scratching the surface on that, because people are so heavily involved either in machine learning or as what we would have originally called automation, and then all of the hype and the buzz is around what can AI generate, and I think that's where we've obviously all seen the strikes in Hollywood. I think one of the things that sport has on that side is you're not going to make a football match or a rugby match without having people playing.
Is there anything that Gen AI could do that people currently cannot?
So it's not an answer, because we
That's a
don't
shame.
know.
There's a question.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Okay.
It's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's one of the exciting bits is as we start to look at what we know we could use AI for, or what we want to use it. We don't know that the AI might have some outputs that we'd never thought about. And as I said, if we're using it to, like a load of interns or work experience, at some point, one of those comes up with a really good idea when they're analyzing data in what, they could be putting into a spreadsheet. And they say, all of a sudden, they go, why don't you do this with this data? And I think that's where we may have some really exciting things we don't know are out there.
Conversely, although one of the worries about AI is that we might lose our jobs, is there actually an opportunity for Gen AI to actually help potentially fill some skills gaps?
Yes. So we're always talking about the skills gaps now, and I think we can use AI to enhance content when it comes out, and we don't necessarily have the skills or the manpower to be able to do that. There are lots of things people would like, and it's too costly or too hard. Production budgets are shrinking all the time. And I think for creating content for other outlets, it is really interesting. It's really time consuming to take a match. We use football because we always do, but a cricket match. Then to be able to take everything you want on all of the different social platforms in a format that needs to look right, portrait, we need more in portrait that we haven't got. And that's where I see some real value in being able to do stuff that we've never been able to do before. Not because it's not possible, it's just not possible with the money and people that we've got.
Thanks very much. Running out of time, two last things. One, the elephant in the room. What's with a moustache?
It's not a lifestyle choice, and I haven't seen many of you for a long time, so yeah. In fact, it's got better because when I shaved off my beard, I looked like a thumb with a face painted on it. So yeah, I'm embracing it.
Sorry, seriously, the last question. Can we have 3 big Gen AI takeaways for everybody to take away as far as sports broadcasting is concerned, please, Matt?
More for less. You've got your very expensive content. You need to be able to monetize that as much as possible. In monetizing and changing content, as I mentioned before, for different formats or ultra personalization is so time consuming. That's why we haven't done it. And that allows us. We always used to say to in BT that we want to take the fan closer to the heart of sport. We don't have enough people to do that to the next level. And I think that's where we will be able to use Gen AI in a really positive way. The next one I touched on, it democratizes broadcasting. It gives a lot more people access to be able to show their sport. If you're an organization or a club that will never get TV rights, then you're able to still create your content and get it out there again onto different formats and socials. And I think I was thinking about what the biggest of all of this, and I thought, what's the number one takeaway? And give it all the shit stuff to do that we don't want to do. It doesn't moan, and that's what I say. So we're going to free up everybody's time, all of the highly skilled innovators and engineers and production crews and camera people, all of the creatives in editorial. Let them do what they train to do and are good at, and don't burden them with tasks that can be easily given to AI.
Perfect. Matthew, thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
mustache. Thanks, guys.